June of 2018, Aurora Fire Rescue welcomed 2 new EOne engines to our fleet. Engine 8 and Engine 9 were the first of this new design. This video will show the new safety features and changes to these rigs.
Guys, I'm Mark with H&E Equipment Services, EOne. I want to go over your truck today, point out a few safety features on the truck so you guys know what we've changed. The new front steel bumpers it'll allow you to take a hit in an accident and not completely demolish the whole front bumper and smash the front bumper in, causing more damage to the truck and more repair costs. The bumper is equipped with the recessed Q2B siren. This keeps the Q2B kind of hidden, tucked out of the way, so if there is a front end collision, it doesn't smash the Q2B into the front of the truck. One of the other features we added to the truck was the convex front corner mount mirror. This allows you to see the front of the truck and the corner of the truck. In a situation where you're making a curve or a corner, you're able to see what's there, or if there's a person walking around in the front of the truck, you can actually see that as well. Side view cameras we actually installed to help you navigate right corners, left corners, so we can actually see down the side of the truck when you make a turn, right or left hand turn. So another addition we made was the extended front steps. This allows you to get in the truck a little bit easier, preventing injuries and climbing in and out of the truck. As well as, we also like to point out the lighted tank level gauge, so you can see the tank level gauge from far, so you're not having to come up on the truck to check your water level gauge. You can see it from a distance. What we made is auto ejects at the actual plug-in itself. So when we pull into the station, we're able to plug in. When you actually hit the ignition button, it will actually eject the plug out of the side of the truck. In order to alleviate some of the space in the compartments themselves, we actually added the water can and the iron storage here, making it easy to get when you actually climb out of the rear of the cab. We also switched to a lower profile BIV valve. All Elkhart product allows the BIV valve to be kept in closer to the pump module to help with side impacts if there isn't a side impact. One of the other items we added, we actually removed the wheel chock storage from underneath the truck where we had clearance issues and actually installed them in the wheel well. What we also made was roll-up doors in place of the slam style, pan style doors, just to keep the amount of visibility at its maximum. When you're actually getting out of the truck with the doors open, we actually use a roll-up door to keep those out of your way so there's no vision impede when you're actually getting out of the truck on a scene. One of the extra items that you need to take care of or maintain with these new roll-up doors is the fact that these channels tend to get dust and dirt debris inside here. You can see the dust and dirt debris. So once a month, we're going to take and wipe these down, clean these inner channels, and actually apply a clean, dry silicone inside the inner channel of the actual door structure. And that prevents this bushing here from taking on any wear and the doors getting hard to open. Another added feature is the whisker tail lights. These actually are on constant. They give you depth perception from the actual driver's seat and officer's seat to tell where the back of the truck is at all times. Was the 45s on the back of the actual tailboard itself to help prevent getting the tailboard damaged if there's any type of tight turns. It allows you to pull a tight turn and not hit the actual tailboard itself. David Clark intercom plugins back here to help backing. So you're backing the truck up, you can actually talk to the driver from the rear of the truck using this headset plug in here. Another addition was the ladder storage. Instead of the actual ladder rack on the truck, we actually went with tunnel style ladder storage. Allows better access to the ladders as well as keeps your ladders in an enclosed space to keep them out of the weather. Another addition is the low hose bed on this truck. Allows you to access hose at a lower level, preventing injuries.
Hi, Engineer Shannon, welcome. We're going to go over new Engine 8, Engine 9. We're going to talk about engineer-specific type components to these engines, including the pump panel and things that you need to know that have changed. We're going to cover all the pump panel components that we've changed over the years from our older Cyclones into these newer styles. I want to start with the handle. This is an EOne specific handle that we had that they designed for us. This is just a slide type handle, open and close, very simple. They do have these locks on them. However, just remember these are not actual locks. These are actually just to create resistance. So when you open these up, it creates that resistance if you're doing big water operations or things of that nature. That's what's going to hold these open for you, but they will not actually lock in place. Simply lefty loosey, righty tighty. When you go to the left, it's going to create less resistance. You tighten it down to the right, it's going to create more resistance. So very, very simple. They've all been color coded to match the side discharges and intakes. That way you know exactly what you're pulling, as well as labeled on the lock as well as above it. So if you do have your handle all the way open for an operation and you no longer can see the lock, you can actually read which discharge you have open on top here. Okay. Moving over to our Foam Pro system. This is a big upgrade that we made on Engine 8 and Engine 9 are going to be our first ones that have the 2002 Foam Pro system. We've always had the 2001. We upgraded to 2002 for a couple of specific reasons. Number one is the 2002 offers us a higher GPM. It's a bigger motor. It also offers us the ability to have 5 different discharges as opposed to 3 with the 2001 that we've always had. So on these new engines, remember your foam discharges are going to be labeled with red on the designator telling you what discharge you have open. So your left rear, your front bumper, your 2 inch and 3/4 pre-connects in the middle, as well as your deck gun are what are going to be set up for foam with these. So by gaining 5, we were able to include the deck gun. One of the big changes we made recently was moving to Nova Cool foam. When we did that, we dropped our foam percentage down to 0.5%, no matter if it's an A, B, C, or an ABDK or Type 3 fire. So by going to 0.5% with our foam and upgrading to the 2002 Foam Pro system, we're now able to do 1,000 gallons per minute of foam, which allowed us to set up the deck gun. So if you do go on to a large operation, a tanker fire, a large fire on the highway where you have a fuel tanker or any sort of storage tanks on fire, you can actually get a water supply. You can have deck gun foam. You can put your fog nozzle on the deck gun. And with a 40-gallon tank at 0.5%, you've got 8 minutes of continuous foam set up with the Nova Cool. So that's one of the biggest changes we did, and a huge advantage to our department. Moving on, as we move down the line here, when you're looking at your discharges, we've included a flow minder to all of our pre-connects. So your left rear, your front bumper, your 2 inch and 3/4, as well as your deck gunner are going to have their own independent flow minder. Remember, the Foam Pro system has a flow minder that is going to work along with these, right? Because they're all plumbed through the Foam Pro system. But we wanted the ability for the engineer on a fire, when they pump a line, they can set their pressure for whatever hose line they're flowing, but they can also have a flow minder telling them what GPM they're flowing. The reason we did that independently is to troubleshoot kink lines as well as burst lines, right? So if we have a kink line, our pressure is going to stay the same. However, our flow minder is going to show a lower flow because we're not allowing water through our line, and that engineer can help diagnose that and fix it. Whereas vice versa, if we have a lot of flow but our pressure is really low, that's telling us we have a burst line, right? Because our container is opened up and now we don't have any back pressure showing on our gauge. So that was the reason we did that, is to help the engineer troubleshoot issues that we might have. Moving on here, you have the HEL TRVL. So what this is an automatic pressure relief set up to the pump. We have an LED light here, a red light. You have a push to test, so you can make sure that your light is working. What's going to happen is if your pump gets hot because of sitting on scene and you're not circulating water, we're not moving water out of the hose lines, and we forget to circulate water through our pump, this will light up and tell you that your pump has reached a certain temperature and that it's getting hot. The other thing that that'll do is it'll give the engineer the ability to fix the problem, and if that doesn't get taken care of, the automatic pressure relief will actually start circulating water for you, so that way we don't burn up any pumps. So that's a great feature that we added. Moving on, so I'll start down here. We've got our primer. So on our older Cyclones, we had the pull handle primer, old style displacement primer. We've upgraded to the Trident Air Primer. The air primer is the same concept. A primer is to displace the air and replace it with water. That's all it's doing. It's not adding fluid to displace that air. It's literally just pulling air from the pump. So this is a true air primer. That's all it does, is it sucks the air out of the pump. When you suck air, the water follows. That's all it's doing. So this is an upgrade for us, as well as our pressure governor. So we've upgraded to this TPG a couple times now. It's the same concept as our Capital that you'll find on our older Cyclones. Same buttons. The nice part about the TPG is instead of the info center that came with this that showed us our battery voltage, our engine temperature, and our oil pressure, this is all designed on here with these 3 lights. The 3 lights are green, yellow, red. It's pretty simple. If you're in the green across all 3 of them, you're at set parameters that we'd like to be at. If you get into the yellow, that's telling you whichever one it is that your engine's starting to get hot, you need to troubleshoot that, or your oil pressure is getting low. And then of course, if you're in your red, you've got an issue, and that's a point where you as an engineer or an acting engineer need to troubleshoot that to solve it before we damage the fire engine. But these parameters are already set. There's nothing you need to do to these, and they're very responsive. They're much more responsive than what we've had currently. The next generation coming after this will have a TPG Plus. The TPG Plus is this exact same setup, except for it'll be a larger module, and on this side will be digital readouts. It'll replace your vacuum and your pressure gauge. So these 2 gauges will go away and it'll all be digital readout. The other nice part that we did the TPG Plus is these rigs have built-in diagnostic type telematics is what it's called. So it's no different than someone's personal vehicle, where it'll send that information to your dealership and say, hey, you have a low tire, your oil needs change. These will do the exact same thing moving forward, where we'll be able to have a program where instant command will be able to watch on a computer and know exactly how much water you're flowing, what your pressures are. That will be able to relay that information, as well as simplify our pump panels and make it easier for our engineers. So that's the reason we're going to the TPG Plus. Fantastic technology coming out, as well as that telematics will send engine diagnostics saying, hey, the fuel level is low, the engine temperature got hot, the oil needs change, whatever the case might be. It's going to send all that information to Fleet 2 as well as Fleet 1, so that way they can help take care of our apparatus a little quicker and easier. Moving on, headset jack. So your headset jack is your David Clark's. So the engineer can now, on a large scene where they're going to be up at the pump panel, they can come up here, take this cap off. Under the engineer's seat will be a plug-in. You'll plug into here. It'll have a belt connection with, I believe, about a 10-foot cord. So you'll be able to click that onto your belt. On that belt connection will be a push-to-talk, and then you'll take your headset from your engineer's seat, where your headset plug into the belt connection. You have a 10-foot cord, so you can go to your intakes or wherever you need to go, and you have a push-to-talk so you can communicate with dispatch. There is no remote control out here for the radio. You just need to make sure that your in-cab radio is set to the proper TAC channel, and then you can communicate via that and drown out all the noise so you can hear what's going on. Moving up here, evacuation alert. That's simply our air horns. The reason we did that is per policy. If we call for an evacuation, right, we sound our air horn. So in order to help the engineer from having to leave the pump panel to get to the cab, in order to do that, we have a push button air horn. They can sound the air horn 3 times and send out that evacuation alert properly. Moving down, just two more things I want to cover on the pump panel. Up here we have the new L-cart. This is called the Stinger 2.0. This is replacing our TFT equipment. So you'll see on your rig, all of your appliances, all of your master streams, all of your nozzles are all L-cart. That's a huge upgrade for us. This is one of them. This is not much different than the Crossfire that you're used to. We still have the 4-tip stack with a maximum of 1,000 GPM out of here. This has a handle twist lock to remove it. And then it does exactly like the Crossfire. However, it's a simpler unit, and it makes the switch over to a ground monitor a lot easier. So that's why we moved to the L-cart. Everything on that is an upgrade to L-cart. Last thing I want to cover over here is our 4-inch discharge. This is not new to us. Per NFPA, if you go larger than a 3-inch discharge, you have to do an electric valve. The reason for that is you can't water hammer an electric valve. It only opens and closes at its own rate. So obviously the red button is closed, the green is open, and then you've got the pressure gauge on the side to set that with. The 4-inch discharge, again, officer side, that's for our pump into aerials, relay pumping, things of that nature. When we want to move big water through 5-inch hose, that's all set up on the electric valve. So don't look for the handles when you're running the 4-inch. One of the things we might look at in the future is adding another 4-inch to the other side, so we have the capability of running multiple 5-inch hose lines, or If you're parked on a curb on this side and it's going to be difficult to get the 5-inch connection, you can move over to the other side. So something we're looking at in the future to possibly do, but that's the only electric valve you're going to run on this rig. You have your certification plaque here telling you that this is a 1500 GPM pump. Remember, we're 100% efficiency of our pumps at 150 and 160 PSI. Once you go above to 200 or 250, you're losing efficiency of your pump. So that's the sweet spot you want to try to set all of your lines into, master streams, whatever, 150 to 165. This placard is showing you how much water. So just like all of our other pumpers, this is a 400, the tank on this is 490 gallons, as well as a 40-gallon foam tank. So all that is labeled there. And then over here is your Foam Pro. Again, model 2002. They'll tell you exactly how much it can do per the percentage and a layout of how the system works. Remember, these do have strainers on them still, so you still need to clean the strainers. We did move the Foam Pro motor and system up into the top dunnage, so it's no longer above the pump. So you'll have to crawl on top of where you fill your foam or you fill your tank. That's where your Foam Pro system will be. And again, 0.5%, we can do 1000 GPM, and that's the main reason for the upgrade. I hope this helps. If you have any questions, feel free to contact anybody in training, contact myself, contact Fleet 2, we can help you out. All right, so let's talk about the cab real quick, operations for engineers, acting engineers. First thing to remember, always on your driver's door here, is you have your placard telling you exactly which fluids go in this rig with specifications. So at any time, if you need to add any sort of fluids, please refer to this before you make any of those additions, so that way we don't add incorrect fluid. Going inside of here real quick, I just want to cover some of the switches, basics of our vehicle. We'll start down here at this lower cluster. This first switch inside the red container here is our regen switch. Okay, so I highly recommend you go over the policies, review regen, but the basics of it. When you get a light on your cluster that says regen, that's when you need to go to the station. You need to do a parked regen. You need to do it within the first 2 to 4 hours of that light coming on. When you park, you always park outside of the bay. You're never hooked up to the meterman, and you're always making sure your exhaust outlet is clear of any sort of debris, vehicles, anything that could burn or melt. When you do that, you go into neutral, you set your parking brake, put your wheel chocks down just like you normally would. You push the regen button up. It's a momentary switch, so it'll come back into the center position. It'll kick into high idle, it'll regen. That could take anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes depending on how bad the filter is. Remember, we always go out of service. You remain out of service to complete that. We don't want to stop that regen for any reason. That's just going to harm the apparatus. And once it kicks down into low idle, you'll be able to drive. Everything's good. You'll get a HES light telling you that the exhaust is hot, right? Make sure that, again, we're making that exhaust area clear. We're not hooking up the Niederman or anything like that. Okay, so that's our regen. Please review the policies when you're looking at that. The other important one down here, this ABS diagnostics is for the shops. Don't worry about that. However, your gauge mode, again, another momentary switch. It'll come back to position, and that'll put you through the gauges where you can go in between miles. You can go into your hours. You can look at all the different pieces on the cluster that you might need for fueling or for maintenance. Working our way up here, you have your battery on. Okay, remember, this is a 2-position switch. It's just like the rest of our apparatus. That first position is like the auxiliary on your car. All that's going to allow you to do is turn the radio on, kick on some of the outside lights, things of that nature. It will not have enough power to start the apparatus. You've got to go all the way up into the second position, and then you push and hold the engine start button. That'll fire the apparatus. When you park it and you're done, all you got to do is switch off on your battery power. I highly recommend just switching off to the first middle position. What that'll do is actually shut the engine off, and I'd leave it in that position for a few seconds to let the regen components come down to idle, and then turn the battery all the way off. Moving our way up here, just real quick on their cluster, or your top upper tier, you've got your DEF fluid gauge. Okay, remember, we want to make sure the DEF fluid stays above half. If it does drop to a quarter, remember, you'll get a check engine light and you'll start losing engine power. So we want to always make sure that we're above a half on our DEF. Remember, your DEF fill is the officer's side rear door where the firefighter sits. There's a trap door there for your depth fill. Your mirror adjust left and right, mirror heaters, auxiliary brake on off, as well as a selector, low, medium, high. Okay. Remember, when you're running your auxiliary brake, we always want our auxiliary brake on, and a little bit of pressure on your accelerator will adjust that auxiliary brake to the comfort level you want it to be. I highly recommend running this in low to medium. High is pretty significant, and I don't think many people will enjoy that. ATC override. This is a momentary switch again, automatic traction control. If you're trying to get out of a slippery spot or inside of mud, your automatic traction control is automatically going to put your power to the wheel of release resistance, which isn't going to get you out. If you hold your momentary override, it'll allow both wheels to spin and let you out. These next two are locked switches, which means it's a 2-action switch. You have to push in on the lock in order to engage the switch. What this is your differential lock. We all know differential lock locks the 2 rear differentials, so that way you get equal power to both. Again, if you're snow, ice, mud, but we don't want to run with that on all the time, so that's why we put the lock switch on it. The next one's your on-spot tire chains. These next 3 are your floodlights. Okay, you can control your scene lights either on the VMUX screen, or we put these here so that way when you're pulling up on scene, we don't want you taking your attention away from what you're doing driving to look at the VMUX screen to go through the menu to turn them on. So we put them up here as a secondary switch to kick them on. You've got a spare, you've got a siren horn, which is just stopping your queue. And then your siren horn is to change your DOT horn between horn and the electric siren. And then your siren brake is to stop your Q siren. You do have your air horn and your Q2B foot pedals on the driver's side. Your officer's side, we've taken them off of the floor and we've actually put them onto the mid cluster, so that way your officer has more room for their bunker gear and their feet. Your air horn is always live. Your Q2B only runs when the master emergency light switch is on. So if you don't have your lights on, you will not have a Q2B, so keep that in mind. Your gear shift over here, same Allison gear shift we've always had. Drive, neutral, reverse. You have the selectors, nothing's changed there. Up in this upper cluster in the center, your directionals for the back, so you can set your traffic directionals, your electric siren control, as well as your radio for radio communications. Your mid cluster, USB ports for charging, your unlock and lock switch for your cab, your AC and heater controls in the middle. Engineer push to talk is right next to the VMUX system for your David Clarks. And then you've got your VMUX system here. The VMUX system we've had for quite a few years. Remember, the VMUX system is a data control center that runs the apparatus for you. So your emergency master button for your emergency lights, it'll allow you to turn on all of your auxiliary lights, your scene lights, your high idles now on here. And then it has selector buttons. It's not a push screen. Do not push this. This is not your iPhone. Use your selector buttons on the side. And then you can go through these. I highly recommend when you get in one of these apparatus first thing in the morning, go through all these menus and see what all these menus are and what these selectors do. This will give you your backup camera. This will give you your side view cameras. When I turn on my turn signal, I automatically get that side view camera kicked on. When I go into reverse, I automatically get the back. So that system will do that. The newer generation apparatus are going to have, the officer is going to have one as well as another set of eyes and able to control the apparatus. But I highly recommend you just go through these menus. That's the best way you're going to learn what all these are. All right, so one of the additional features that we've added to our engines, Engine 8, Engine 9 are going to be the first two. Every other engine past that's going to have the same thing. If you look up top on the officer side, third module, which is our compartments, you'll see a 4-inch hard suction, okay? So remember, when you're doing drafting operations, you'll have to get up there and get that 4-inch down, hook it up in straight to your pump without the BIV, and then you need some sort of strainer, either a low level or barrel strainer, and you can do up to 2 of those at a time. So if you're gonna pull off of a static water supply, such as a swimming pool, a stream, anything of that nature, you need another engine company or the tender with another 4-inch suction, so that way you can lay that 20 feet out in order to hit where because you can't park right next to the swimming pool. So get as close as you can, get another engine, hook 2 of them up. That's the most you can do is 2, and then you can set your strainer in and pull your water supply.